At 2:47 a.m., the notification lit up my phone screen. Joint account withdrawal, $47,000. Location, Las Vegas, Nevada. I wasn't in Las Vegas. I was lying in our bed in Portland, Oregon, listening to the rain against the windows, believing my fiancé Marcus Caldwell was at a business conference in Chicago. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The timestamp showed the withdrawal happened 18 minutes ago. 18 minutes ago, I was checking wedding venues on Pinterest, mentally calculating how we'd use that exact money for our dream ceremony at the Overlook Estate. 18 minutes ago, I trusted the man who'd proposed to me on Christmas morning with my grandmother's ring, reset in platinum. Now I was staring at a bank balance of $127. $127 left from what should have been $47,127. I sat up in bed, my chest tight. Marcus had been distant for 3 weeks. Short phone calls, delayed responses to texts. When I'd suggested flying to Chicago to surprise him, he'd gotten sharp with me. "Sheila, this is important for my career. I need to focus." I'd backed off, feeling guilty for being clingy. The rain kept falling. My hands were shaking as I opened our banking app. The transaction history told a story I wasn't ready to read. 4 ATM withdrawals. Each one has a maximum daily limit. 4 different days, 4 different lies about where he was and what he was doing. Tuesday, client dinner ran late, can't talk. $12,000 withdrawal, Bellagio Casino. Wednesday, big presentation tomorrow, getting some sleep. $12,000 withdrawal, Caesar's Palace. Thursday, conference is intense, love you. $12,000 withdrawal, MGM Grand. Friday, miss you too, almost done here. $11,000 withdrawal, Wynn Las Vegas. Each message I'd believed, each worry I'd pushed away. Each time I'd told myself I was being paranoid, that Marcus loved me, that our future together was solid. I called him, straight to voicemail. His voice, warm and familiar, asked me to leave a message and promised he'd get back to me soon. The same voice that had whispered wedding vows in my ear as we practiced them in our kitchen. The same voice that had called me his forever girl just last Sunday morning over coffee and newspaper. I hung up and dialed again. Voicemail. By 3 a.m., I was dressed and sitting at my laptop in our home office, surrounded by wedding magazines and vendor contracts. The folder labeled Our Future sat next to me, filled with venue deposits, catering agreements, and a photographer contract we'd signed just 2 weeks ago. Everything we'd planned. Everything I believed we were building together. The banking app was still open. I refreshed it, hoping somehow the numbers would change, that this was a mistake or fraud. The balance remained the same, $127. I opened a new browser window and searched for flights to Las Vegas, departing from Portland. The earliest was 6:15 a.m., 3 hours and 28 minutes away. I could be there by 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, 11:30 a.m. where Marcus was supposed to be in Chicago, not gambling away our wedding fund in Nevada. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Jessica Palmer. "How's the wedding planning going? Found the perfect dress yet?" I stared at her message. 24 hours ago, I would have sent her photos of dress options, complained about venue pricing, shared excitement about our engagement photo scheduled for next month. Now I didn't know what to say. How do you explain that the person you're supposed to marry in 4 months just stole nearly $50,000 and lied about his location for 4 straight days? Instead of replying, I did something I never thought I'd do. I logged into Marcus's email account. I knew his password because he'd given it to me months ago when he was traveling for work and needed me to print boarding passes. "We're going to be married, Sheila. No secrets between us." He'd kissed my forehead and headed to the airport. trusting me with access to everything. Now that trust felt like evidence. His inbox is loaded. The most recent emails made my stomach drop. Confirmation from the Bellagio for a suite, premium package, 2 guests, dates matching exactly when he'd told me he was in Chicago for the Morrison Industries conference. I scrolled down. Dinner reservations at Gordon Ramsay Hell's Kitchen, 2 people. Wine tasting at the Wynn, 2 people. Couples massage at the spa, 2 people. 2 people, always 2 people. Never one business traveler attending seminars and networking events.
My hands were steady now, but my heart was racing. I kept scrolling. There, buried between casino confirmations and restaurant reservations, was an email that changed everything. Confirmation: Marcus plus Brittany, couples photography session, Desert Rose Wedding Chapel, March 15th. March 15th was yesterday. Yesterday, while I was calling venues in Portland and tasting cake samples with my mother, Marcus was in Las Vegas having engagement photos taken with someone named Brittany. I clicked on the email. The photographer's package included romantic desert sunset shots, vintage Vegas glamour poses, and chapel interior intimate moments. The kind of photos I'd been planning for us. The kind of photos that were supposed to capture our love story. I opened another tab and searched Marcus Caldwell, Brittany Las Vegas on Facebook. Social media has always been our weak spot as a couple. Marcus posted rarely, and I'd never been the type to obsess over his activity. Now I wished I'd paid closer attention. The search results showed me everything I needed to see. Brittany Chen, 24 years old, worked at the same financial consulting firm where Marcus was a senior analyst. Her recent photos showed her in Las Vegas, poolside at the Bellagio, dining at expensive restaurants, wearing a ring I didn't recognize on her left hand. But it was the photo from yesterday that broke something inside me. Marcus and Brittany, both dressed formally, standing in front of the Desert Rose Wedding Chapel. She was holding a bouquet. He was kissing her cheek. The caption read, "When you know, you know. Forever starts now." Posted 4 hours ago, while I was asleep in our bed waiting for him to come home from his fictional business trip. I sat back in my chair. The office around me looked different now. The wedding planning materials felt like props from someone else's life. The engagement photos of Marcus and me on the desk seemed like artifacts from a museum exhibit about naive young women who trusted the wrong men. But as I stared at Brittany's Facebook page, something else caught my attention. A detail that Marcus clearly hadn't thought through when he decided to steal our joint account and run off to Vegas with his coworker. Brittany's employment history showed she'd started at Morrison Financial just 8 months ago. New employee, entry-level position, someone who probably didn't know about Marcus's family background, someone who definitely didn't know about the Caldwell Trust. Marcus had always been private about his family's wealth. His grandfather had made a fortune in timber rights across Oregon and Washington. When Marcus turned 25, he'd gained access to a trust fund worth $2.8 million. I only knew because I'd been with him when he'd met with the family attorneys last year to update his beneficiary information. He'd added my name as secondary beneficiary, explaining that married couples should have access to each other's assets.
"It's just paperwork, Sheila," he'd said, signing documents while I waited in the lawyer's reception area. "When we're married, what's mine is yours anyway." The lawyers had been thorough. They'd explained every aspect of the trust, every access point, every legal requirement. As his fiancé and soon-to-be spouse, I'd been given provisional access codes and account information. For emergency purposes, the elder attorney had explained, should anything happen to Marcus before the wedding. At the time, it had felt like a formality, a responsible step for a couple planning a future together. Now, sitting in my home office at 3:47 a.m., discovering that my fiancé had stolen our joint savings and was apparently married or engaged to someone else, that provisional access felt like something entirely different. I walked to our bedroom and opened the safe hidden behind our dresser. Inside were our important documents: birth certificates, social security cards, insurance policies, And there, in a manila folder marked Financial Trust Account, were all the access codes and account numbers the Caldwell family attorneys had provided. Marcus had insisted on keeping everything in our shared safe. Complete transparency, he'd said. That's how marriages work. I took the folder back to my laptop. The Caldwell Trust was managed by Pacific Northwest Financial Services. Their website allowed 24-hour account access for authorized users. I entered the login information, my heart pounding. The account is loaded. Balance $2,847,293.16. Nearly $3 million. Sitting there, accessible, under an engagement agreement that Marcus had legally entered into with me, not with whoever Brittany Chen was. I stared at the screen. Marcus had stolen $47,000 from our joint account to fund his Vegas wedding with his coworker. He'd lied about his location for 4 days. He'd betrayed every promise he'd made to me, every plan we'd built together. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. In his rush to access our shared money, he'd left me with access to his family fortune. The cursor blinked in the transfer field. I could move any amount up to the daily maximum of $50,000 to any account I designated. Tomorrow, the limit will reset. The day after that, again. I looked around our shared office. Wedding magazines, vendor contracts, photos of us looking happy and in love. All of it built on lies. All of it is worthless now. But I wasn't worthless, and I wasn't powerless.
Marcus thought he could steal from me and disappear into a new life with someone else. He thought I'd discovered the theft after he was safely married to Brittany, probably believing I'd be too heartbroken or embarrassed to fight back. He'd underestimated me completely. And more importantly, he'd underestimated what I now had access to. I opened a new savings account in my name only. Then I initiated my first transfer from the Caldwell Trust, $50,000, the maximum daily limit. As the confirmation screen loaded, I realized this wasn't about the money he'd stolen anymore. This was about everything he'd taken from me, my trust, my future, my belief in love itself. Marcus had started a war he didn't even know was coming. And I was about to show him exactly what happened when you betrayed someone who loved you completely. The confirmation email arrived at 4:23 a.m. Transfer complete, $50,000 moved from Caldwell Trust to Sheila Morrison Personal Savings. I screenshotted it and closed my laptop, feeling something I hadn't expected. Not satisfied, not revenge, relief. For the first time in hours, I had control over something. By 6 a.m., I was dressed and sitting in my car in the driveway, engine running. The Portland morning was gray and drizzly, typical March weather that Marcus always complained about. "Can't wait until we can afford that vacation home in San Diego," he'd say, scrolling through real estate listings on his phone. Now I wondered if those vacation home searches had been for him and Brittany. I drove to my parents' house in Beaverton. Mom and Dad had always loved Marcus. "Such a responsible young man," Mom would tell her bridge club friends. "Sheila's so lucky to find someone with such good family values." Dad appreciated Marcus's knowledge of investments and often asked his advice about retirement planning. They were going to be devastated. I used my key to let myself in, finding them in the kitchen, having coffee, and reading the newspaper. Sunday morning routine they'd maintained for 30 years. "Sheila, honey," Mom looked up from the lifestyle section. "You're up early. Is Marcus with you?" "That's why I'm here." I sat down at the breakfast table, the same spot where I'd told them about getting engaged, where we'd planned engagement party details, where Marcus had asked Dad's permission to marry me 6 months ago. Marcus took all our money and went to Las Vegas. He's there with another woman. I think they got married. The silence stretched long enough for me to hear the coffee maker gurgling and the neighbor's dog barking outside. Dad set down his newspaper. "What do you mean, took your money?" I explained everything. The bank notifications, the Vegas transactions, Brittany Chen's social media photos, the wedding chapel booking. As I talked, I watched their faces change from concern to confusion to something that looked almost like disappointment.
but not with Marcus. Sheila, Mom said carefully, are you sure you're not misunderstanding something? Marcus wouldn't do that. He's been nothing but respectful and loving toward you. I showed you the bank statements, the photos. But maybe there's an explanation. Dad leaned forward. Did you call him? Did you give him a chance to explain? His phone goes straight to voicemail. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Maybe his phone died. Maybe there's poor reception. I stared at my father. Dad, I saw photos of him with another woman at a wedding chapel. Photos can be misleading, Mom said. You know how social media is these days. People post things out of context. The bank withdrawals happened in Las Vegas, while he told me he was in Chicago. Maybe the conference got moved, Dad suggested. Companies change venues all the time. I felt something cold settling in my chest. They weren't just skeptical, they were actively looking for ways to excuse Marcus's behavior. Even if something happened, Mom continued, even if there was some kind of misunderstanding, you need to handle this maturely. Running around making accusations won't help your relationship. My relationship is over, Mom. He stole our joint savings and married someone else. Don't be dramatic, Dad's tone sharpened. Marcus is a good man from a good family. You don't throw away a relationship like that over a misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding.
Then what is it? Mom asked. What do you think happened exactly? I looked between them. My parents, who had raised me, who had taught me right from wrong, who had always been my safe place when the world felt chaotic. They were looking at me like I was the problem. I think Marcus has been cheating on me with his coworker for months. I think he took our wedding money to fund a Vegas elopement with her, and I think you're both more concerned about preserving your relationship with the Caldwell family than you are about what happened to your daughter. The kitchen went silent again. That's unfair, Dad said finally. We're trying to help you think clearly. By assuming I'm wrong? By encouraging you to be rational instead of emotional. I stood up. If someone stole $50,000 from you and lied about their location for 4 days, would you be rational or emotional? We'd handle it like adults, Mom said. We'd communicate. We wouldn't jump to conclusions. I walked toward the front door. Behind me, Dad called out, Sheila, don't leave angry. Let's talk about this. But I was already outside, sitting in my car, realizing that my parents' reaction hurt more than Marcus's betrayal. At least Marcus had shown his true character clearly. My parents were still pretending theirs. My phone rang. Jessica Palmer, my best friend since college. Hey, early bird. What are you doing? I almost hung up, but Jessica had been my maid of honor. She'd helped me pick out wedding dresses, tasted cake samples, addressed save-the-date cards. She deserved to know. Marcus cleaned out her joint account and got married in Vegas to someone else. Wait, what? Slow down. What are you talking about? I explained everything again. The bank notifications, the photos, the lies about Chicago. As I talked, I waited for Jessica's response, hoping for support, understanding, someone who would be as outraged as I was. Oh my God, Sheila, that's crazy. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. But Marcus loves you. I've seen you two together. He adores you. Apparently not enough to avoid stealing from me and marrying someone else. Maybe there's more to the story. Have you talked to him? His phone is off. Well, until you talk to him, you don't really know what happened. I felt the cold in my chest spreading. Jessica, I saw the bank transactions. I saw the photos. I know, but people make mistakes, even good people. Maybe he panicked about something. Maybe this Brittany person pressured him somehow. So you think I should forgive him? I think you should find out the whole story before you make any big decisions. You two have been planning this wedding for almost a year. You can't just throw that away without being absolutely certain. I am absolutely certain. But are you, though? Really? Because this is Marcus we're talking about. The same guy who drove 4 hours to surprise you on your birthday last year. The same guy who learned to cook your grandmother's soup recipe when you were sick. That Marcus wouldn't do this. I ended the call and sat in my parents' driveway, staring at their house. Through the kitchen window, I could see them talking. Probably about me, probably about how I was overreacting and needed to calm down. My phone buzzed with text messages. Jessica, I'm sorry if I seemed unsupportive. I'm just shocked. Call me later when you've had time to process. Mom, come back inside. Let's talk about this calmly. Dad, your mother made pancakes. Don't leave upset. No one was asking how I felt. No one was angry on my behalf. No one was offering to help me figure out what to do next. They were all focused on managing my reaction, controlling my response, protecting everyone except me. I drove to Marcus's sister Caroline's house in Lake Oswego. Caroline was 3 years older than Marcus, married to a pediatric surgeon, mother of twin boys. She'd always been kind to me, including me in family gatherings, asking my opinion on decorating choices, treating me like the sister-in-law I was supposed to become. Caroline's house was in an expensive neighborhood, all perfectly manicured lawns and luxury SUVs and circular driveways. I'd always felt slightly intimidated visiting, knowing that Caroline and her husband, Dr. Peterson, had the kind of wealth Marcus and I were still working toward. Caroline answered the door in yoga clothes, coffee mug in hand. Sheila, what a surprise. Is everything okay? I need to talk to you about Marcus. She invited me in, settling us in her pristine living room with its white furniture and fresh flowers. Through the windows, I could see her twins playing on an elaborate swing set in the backyard. Marcus stole our joint savings and went to Las Vegas with another woman, I said. I think they got married. Caroline's expression didn't change. She sipped her coffee and studied my face like she was solving a puzzle. That doesn't sound like Marcus, she said finally. I have bank records, photos. Can I see them? I showed her everything on my phone. The transaction history, Brittany's Facebook posts, the wedding chapel confirmation email I'd found in his account. Caroline scrolled through everything carefully, taking her time. When she finished, she handed my phone back. Sheila, I can see why you're upset, but there might be explanations for these things. What kind of explanations? Well, maybe Marcus was helping this Brittany person with something. Maybe she needed financial assistance, and he was trying to help her without worrying you. By lying about his location and posing for wedding photos? Maybe those aren't wedding photos. Maybe it was some kind of work event. You know how companies do team-building activities. I stared at her. Team-building activities at a wedding chapel? Look, I know my brother. He's not perfect, but he wouldn't do what you're describing. He loves you. He's talked about your wedding constantly. He's excited about your future together. Then where is he? Why won't he answer his phone? Maybe he's planning some kind of surprise. You know how men can be about romantic gestures. A surprise that involves stealing our savings? Caroline set down her coffee cup. Sheila, I think you're overwhelmed. Planning a wedding is stressful. Maybe you're reading more into these things than is actually there. You think I'm imagining this? I think you're upset and looking for problems that might not exist. I stood up. Marcus stole $47,000 from our joint account and got married to someone else in Las Vegas. That's not a problem I'm imagining. Allegedly, Caroline said quietly. Allegedly? I mean, you haven't talked to Marcus. You don't know his side of the story. I walked toward her front door. When Marcus comes home from his honeymoon with Brittany, ask him to call me. We can discuss his side of the story then. Sheila, don't leave like this. Let's talk about it. But I was already outside, walking toward my car. Through her living room window, I could see Caroline picking up her phone,
probably calling other family members, probably warning them that Marcus's fiancé was having some kind of breakdown. By noon, I'd received calls from Marcus's cousin David, his aunt Linda, and his mother Patricia, all expressing concern, all suggesting I might be misunderstanding the situation, all recommending I wait to hear Marcus's explanation before doing anything rash. His mother's call was the worst. "Sheila, dear, Caroline told me you're having some concerns about Marcus's business trip." It wasn't a business trip. He went to Vegas and got married to someone else. Now, sweetie, that doesn't sound like the Marcus we know and love. Well, maybe you don't know him as well as you think. Marcus has never been dishonest with us. He's always been a responsible, trustworthy young man. Responsible people don't steal wedding funds and lie about their location. But are you certain that's what happened? Sometimes when we're stressed about big life changes like weddings, we can misinterpret things. I'm not misinterpreting bank records and wedding photos.
Well, until Marcus has a chance to explain, I think we should all reserve judgment. You're asking me to reserve judgment about my own fiancé stealing my money? I'm asking you to trust the man you agreed to marry. I hung up and sat in my empty house, surrounded by wedding planning materials and engagement photos. Every single person I'd reached out to had taken Marcus's side. Not one person had believed me completely. Not one person had been outraged on my behalf. They were all protecting him, preserving their relationships with him, giving him the benefit of doubt they weren't extending to me. My phone rang again. Unknown number. "Hello? Sheila. This is Dr. Amanda Richardson. I'm a friend of your mother's from the book club. I had met Dr. Richardson a few times at family gatherings. She was a therapist who specialized in relationship counseling. Your mother mentioned you're going through a difficult time with your fiancé. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone neutral." "Did my mother ask you to call me?" "She's concerned about you. We all are." "Concerned about me? Or concerned about my reaction to Marcus?" Sometimes when we're planning major life events like weddings, we can experience anxiety that manifests in different ways. I hung up and turned off my phone. It was 2:30 p.m. I'd been awake for almost 12 hours. In that time, I discovered my fiancé's betrayal, accessed his trust fund, and learned that every single person in my support system believed I was either lying, mistaken, or having some kind of mental health crisis. I was completely alone. But I wasn't powerless. And unlike everyone else, I knew exactly what Marcus had done and exactly what I was going to do about it. I opened my laptop and logged back into the Caldwell Trust account. Tomorrow's transfer limit would reset at midnight. Another $50,000 I could move into my personal account. Marcus had chosen his side. His family had chosen their side. Even my own parents had chosen their side. Now I would show them all what happened when you isolated someone who had access to $2.8 million and nothing left to lose. Monday morning, I woke up alone in our bed for the first time in 2 years. The silence felt different now, not lonely, focused. I'd made a decision sometime during the night. If everyone wanted to believe Marcus was innocent until proven guilty, I would give them proof they couldn't dismiss or explain away. But more than that, I would make sure Marcus faced consequences that matched the magnitude of what he'd done to me. Stealing money was one thing, but he'd stolen my future, my trust in love itself, my ability to believe in the promises people made. That deserves something more permanent than just getting the $47,000 back. I called in sick to work. My job at the environmental consulting firm could survive without me for a few days while I handled more pressing matters. As a project coordinator, I was good at research, documentation, and building comprehensive cases for regulatory compliance, skills that would serve me well now. First, I needed to understand exactly what legal and financial tools I had access to. The Caldwell Trust was more than just money. It was a complex financial instrument with multiple components, investment portfolios, and legal protections that Marcus himself probably didn't fully understand. I drove downtown Portland and parked outside the offices of Pacific Northwest Financial Services. The building was old Portland money elegant, all mahogany and brass fixtures that spoke to generations of wealth management. The Caldwell family had been clients here for 40 years. I'd only been inside once before when Marcus had added me as his beneficiary.
I'd like to speak with someone about the Caldwell Trust account, I told the receptionist, a woman in her 50s with the kind of composed professionalism that suggested she's seen every type of family financial drama imaginable. Certainly. Are you family? I'm Marcus Caldwell's fiancé. I was added as a beneficiary last year. She checked her computer system. Of course, Miss Morrison. Mr. Henderson can see you in a few minutes. James Henderson was the senior advisor who'd handled Marcus's family accounts for over a decade. He was probably in his 60s, with the careful manner of someone who'd learned that wealthy families often had complicated personal situations that required discretion. Miss Morrison, how can I help you today? I need to understand the full scope of the trust account and my access rights as Marcus's beneficiary. Is there a particular concern? Marcus is currently unreachable, and I need to know what my responsibilities and options are regarding the account. Henderson pulled up files on his computer. Let me review your access level. Yes, as the designated beneficiary and fiancé, you have substantial provisional rights. In the event of incapacitation, emergency, or if the primary account holder becomes unreachable for more than 72 hours, you can initiate certain protective measures. What kind of protective measures? Well, you can freeze the account to prevent unauthorized access. You can also initiate transfers to secure the assets if you believe the primary holder is making decisions that compromise the trust's stability. What constitutes compromising the trust's stability? Henderson consulted his notes. Gambling, substance abuse, questionable investments, or any behavior that suggests impaired judgment regarding financial decisions. I felt something click into place. If Marcus were, hypothetically, in Las Vegas gambling with trust funds, that would qualify. Absolutely. The trust was established with specific protections against reckless behavior. The Caldwell family learned from previous generations' mistakes. And if I had evidence of such behavior, then you would have not only the right but arguably the obligation to protect the trust assets. Henderson was being careful, but I could see he understood exactly what I was asking. This wasn't his first conversation with a concerned family member about someone making poor financial decisions. What would I need to document such behavior? Transaction records, location data, any evidence of gambling or reckless spending. The trust documents are quite specific about these protections. I left the financial office with a clear understanding of my position. I wasn't just someone with access to Marcus's money. I was legally positioned as a guardian of the trust, with responsibilities to protect it from misuse. My next stop was the downtown library. I needed to research Nevada marriage law, specifically how quickly marriages could be performed and what documentation was required. If Marcus had legally married Brittany, there would be public records. The Clark County, Nevada Marriage License Database was accessible online. I searched for licenses issued in the past week under Marcus Caldwell's name. There it was. Marriage license issued March 14th to Marcus James Caldwell and Brittany Lynn Chen. Witnessed and signed. Completely legal and completely devastating to look at in black and white, but it was also evidence. Evidence that Marcus had committed bigamy, since our engagement constituted a legal commitment under Oregon law, and that he'd made the single largest decision of his life without ending his previous commitment first. I screenshotted everything and printed copies. My phone had been buzzing all morning with calls from Marcus's family members, but I'd been ignoring them. Now I had a different plan for handling their concern. I called Caroline back. Sheila, thank goodness, we've all been worried about you. I have some information about Marcus that I think you should see. Of course. Can you come over? Actually, I'd prefer to meet somewhere public. Are you free for coffee this afternoon? We agreed to meet at a cafe in Lake Oswego, not far from her house. Caroline arrived looking concerned, but composed, still clearly believing this was about my emotional status rather than Marcus's actual behavior. I ordered tea and sat across from her in a corner booth where we could speak privately. I have documents I'd like you to look at, I said, sliding the marriage license printout across the table. Caroline read it carefully, her expression changing as she processed what she was seeing. This says Marcus got married in Las Vegas to Brittany Chen, his coworker. But this can't be right. You're engaged to Marcus. Yes, which makes this bigamy under Oregon law. Caroline stared at the document. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe someone used his identity. I have the bank records showing he was there. I have photos from Brittany's social media. I have the hotel confirmation from his email. I showed her everything. The transaction history, the couple's photos, the wedding chapel booking. Caroline went through each piece of evidence methodically, and I watched her certainty crumble. "Oh my God," she whispered finally. "He really did this?" "Yes." "But why? Why would he do this?" "I don't know why, but I know what I'm going to do about it." Caroline looked up from the documents. "What do you mean?" "Marcus has access to the family trust. He's been using it irresponsibly, and as his designated beneficiary, I have legal obligations to protect those assets." "You're going to take legal action." "I'm going to take appropriate action to safeguard the trust from further misuse." Caroline's face went pale. "Sheila, I understand you're hurt, but the family trust has been in our family for 3 generations. You can't just—" "I can't just what? Protect it from someone who demonstrated such poor judgment that he committed bigamy and stole wedding funds to pay for it? But if you freeze Marcus's access, or if there's a legal challenge, it could affect the whole family. Marcus should have thought about that before he got married to someone else while engaged to me." Caroline leaned forward. "What do you want? What would it take for you to not pursue this?" I've been waiting for this question. This was where the planning phase shifted into strategy. I want Marcus to face consequences that match what he did to me. He destroyed my future, my ability to trust, my relationship with my own family who chose to believe him over me. He doesn't get to walk away from that without losing something permanent himself. But the trust is protected by specific provisions against reckless behavior. Marcus triggered those provisions when he decided to gamble with family money and commit bigamy. Caroline sat back in her chair. "You're really going to do this?" "I'm really going to do this." "What if I talked to him? What if he came back and explained everything?" "There's nothing to explain. He's legally married to someone else." "What if he could fix it somehow?" I gathered the documents from the table. "Caroline, yesterday you told me I was imagining problems that didn't exist. You suggested I was having stress-related delusions. Today, you're looking at legal proof that everything I told you was true. The time for fixing this passed when Marcus decided my feelings didn't matter." I stood to leave, but Caroline grabbed my arm. "Please, just think about this. Once you start legal proceedings, there's no going back. Families get destroyed by this kind of thing. Families get destroyed when people steal money and commit bigamy. I'm just documenting what already happened." That evening, I sat in my home office and created a comprehensive file. Bank records, marriage license, hotel confirmations, social media screenshots, email evidence. Everything organized chronologically with supporting documentation. But more than that, I researched every aspect of the Caldwell Trust's legal structure, the protective provisions, the oversight requirements, the circumstances under which beneficiaries could take action to preserve assets. Marcus had been careless because he'd never imagined I would fight back. He'd assumed I'd be too heartbroken, too embarrassed, or too intimidated by his family's wealth and connections to challenge him.
He'd underestimated my capacity for strategic thinking. More importantly, he'd forgotten that I'd spent 2 years learning about his family's financial arrangements, their legal vulnerabilities, and their deepest concerns about protecting generational wealth. I opened my laptop and began drafting the formal complaint I would file with Pacific Northwest Financial Services the next morning. A complaint that would trigger a mandatory review of Marcus's account activity and freeze his access pending investigation. But that was just the beginning. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for Detective Sarah Walsh, Portland Police Bureau. We'd worked together on an environmental crime case last year, and she'd mentioned that financial fraud was becoming increasingly complex in cases involving family members. Detective Walsh? This is Sheila Morrison. We worked together on the Morrison Industries case last year. Of course, Sheila. How can I help you? I need to report suspected financial fraud and bigamy involving my fiancé. That sounds complicated. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I have extensive documentation. Good, bring everything. Cases like this live or die on the quality of evidence. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair and looked around the office. Tomorrow, I would file complaints with the financial institution, the police, and the Oregon State Bar's Ethics Committee, since Marcus worked in financial consulting and had fiduciary responsibilities to clients. But tonight, I had one more transfer to make, another $50,000 from the Caldwell Trust to my personal account. By the time Marcus returned from his honeymoon, he would discover that his new wife had married someone with frozen assets, active criminal investigations, and professional licensing challenges. And I would be just getting started. Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., I walked into Pacific Northwest Financial Services, carrying a leather portfolio containing 53 pages of documentation. James Henderson met me in his office, and this time his expression was all business. Ms. Morrison, I've reviewed your concerns about the trust account. These are serious allegations. They're not allegations, they're documented facts. I laid out everything systematically. The Las Vegas transaction records showing $47,000 withdrawn from our joint account. The marriage license proving Marcus had legally wed Brittany Chen while engaged to me. Hotel confirmations demonstrating he'd lied about his location for 4 consecutive days. Most concerning, I said, sliding the final document across his desk, is this evidence that Marcus used trust funds to finance gambling activities in Las Vegas. Henderson examined the bank records I'd obtained, showing transfers from the Caldwell Trust to Marcus's personal checking account, followed immediately by the large cash withdrawals at various casinos. This directly violates the behavioral clauses established by his grandfather, Henderson said grimly. The trust specifically prohibits gambling and reckless financial behavior. What are my options as the designated beneficiary? Under these circumstances, you have the authority to invoke protective measures immediately. We can freeze Marcus's access pending a full investigation. How long would such an investigation take? Minimum 30 days, potentially longer if we discover additional irregularities. Do it. Henderson made notes in Marcus's file. This will go into effect within the hour. Marcus will receive notification by certified mail and email. What exactly will be frozen? All trust distributions, credit lines tied to the trust, and access to investment accounts. The trust will continue to generate income, but Marcus won't be able to touch any of it until the investigation concludes. I felt the first wave of satisfaction I'd experienced since Sunday morning. What happens if the investigation confirms misuse? The trust could be restructured to remove him as primary beneficiary. In extreme cases, we've seen accounts transferred entirely to secondary beneficiaries. Henderson was being diplomatic, but I understood. If I played this correctly, Marcus could lose access to his family fortune permanently. I'll need a copy of all filing documentation, I said. Of course. Ms. Morrison, I want you to know that Pacific Northwest Financial takes fiduciary responsibility very seriously. Your actions are protecting the trust exactly as it was designed to be protected. From the financial office, I drove directly to the Portland Police Bureau downtown. Detective Sarah Walsh was waiting for me in an interview room with a digital recorder and a legal pad. Sheila, talk me through what happened. I presented the same evidence I'd shown Henderson, but with Walsh, I focused on the criminal aspects. The theft from our joint account, the fraudulent use of our shared credit cards, the bigamy under Oregon state law.
The joint account theft is straightforward, Walsh said, reviewing the bank statements. Oregon law is clear about financial abuse between domestic partners. The bigamy charge is more complex, but your engagement constitutes a legal commitment that makes his subsequent marriage problematic. What kind of timeline are we looking at for charges? I'll need to coordinate with the district attorney's office, but based on this documentation, I'd expect formal charges within 2 weeks, possibly sooner. What should I expect in terms of Marcus being notified? Once charges are filed, he'll be arrested. Given that he's currently out of state, we'll coordinate with Las Vegas authorities. Walsh leaned back in her chair. Sheila, I have to ask, are you prepared for how public this might become? Financial fraud cases involving prominent families often attract media attention. The Caldwell family is prominent in Portland business circles. Exactly. Once this hits the courts, it becomes public record. You'll want to be prepared for scrutiny. I'm prepared. After leaving the police station, I drove to my office for the first time since Friday. I needed to handle practical matters before the situation escalated further. My supervisor, Maria Santos, was understanding when I explained I was dealing with a family emergency that might require extended time off. Take what you need. Your projects are in good shape, and Jennifer can cover anything urgent. I didn't mention the specifics, but Maria was perceptive enough to understand something serious was happening. If you need any kind of support or if there are legal issues we should be aware of, just let me know. Thank you. I'll keep you informed. That afternoon, my phone started ringing constantly. The financial institution had notified Marcus about the frozen accounts, and the Caldwell family was responding exactly as I'd expected. First, Caroline called. Sheila, what have you done? Marcus can't access any of his accounts. I protected the trust from further misuse. But he's in Las Vegas. How is he supposed to get home? He can ask his wife to help him. This is vindictive. You're punishing the whole family for something Marcus did. I'm enforcing the trust's protection clauses. If the family has concerns about that, they should have taught Marcus better financial responsibility. Caroline's voice got sharp. You know this will destroy him professionally. His business depends on his reputation. He should have considered that before committing bigamy and theft. Next came Marcus's mother, Patricia. Sheila, dear, we need to talk. This account situation is a misunderstanding that's gotten out of hand. It's not a misunderstanding. It's documented financial misconduct. But freezing Marcus's accounts affects his ability to work, to support himself. Surely we can resolve this privately. Mrs. Caldwell, your son stole money from me, lied to me for 4 days, and married someone else while engaged to me. There's nothing private about any of that anymore. But think about the family reputation. Think about what this does to everyone. I did think about it. That's exactly why I'm doing it.
The calls continued throughout the afternoon. Marcus's uncle Robert, who worked in commercial real estate and was concerned about how this would affect family business relationships. His cousin David, who was starting law school and worried about family scandal affecting his future career. Even his elderly grandmother called from her assisted living facility, confused about what was happening, but certain it must be some kind of mistake. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Initial attempts to reason with me, followed by increasing desperation as they realized I wasn't going to back down. But the call I was waiting for came at 6:47 p.m. Sheila. Marcus's voice was flat, angry, and completely unfamiliar. Marcus? How's married life? What the hell have you done to my accounts? I protected the Caldwell Trust from financial misuse. It's my legal responsibility as your beneficiary. You can't do this. That's my family's money. Actually, I can do this, and I have done this. Fix it. Call the bank and fix it right now. I almost laughed. Even now, even caught red-handed with evidence of theft and bigamy, he thought he could give me orders. No. Sheila, I'm serious. I need access to those accounts. Then you shouldn't have violated the trust's behavioral clauses. What behavioral clauses? The ones that prohibit gambling and reckless financial behavior. The ones your grandfather included specifically to prevent family members from doing exactly what you did. There was silence on the other end. Marcus was realizing that I knew more about his family's financial arrangements than he'd ever given me credit for. "Look," he said, his tone shifting to something that might have been conciliatory if I didn't know better. "Maybe we can work something out." "We can't. You don't understand. I have business obligations, client commitments. I can't just have my accounts frozen." "You should have thought about that before you stole our joint savings. I was going to pay that back." "With what money? You spent it all in Vegas with Brittany." Another pause. "How do you know about Brittany?" "I know about everything, Marcus. The hotels, the marriage license, the wedding photos, all of it. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." "Sheila, just listen to me for a minute." "No, I'm done listening to you, but I want you to listen to me." I walked to our home office, looking at the engagement photos on the desk, the wedding planning materials, all the evidence of the future he'd destroyed. "Tomorrow morning, the Portland police are filing criminal charges against you for financial fraud and bigamy. Your accounts will remain frozen pending investigation. Your professional licenses are under review, and every single person who dismissed my concerns about you is going to have to explain why they protected a criminal. You can't prove any of this. I have 53 pages of documentation that say otherwise." "This is insane. You're destroying my life over a misunderstanding." "I'm not destroying your life, Marcus. You destroyed your life. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Your family will never forgive you for this. Your family spent yesterday trying to convince me I was having delusions. Today, they're calling me, begging to fix the mess you created. I don't need their forgiveness. If you do this, if you go through with this, there's no going back." "You're right. There's no going back. You made sure of that when you married Brittany." I hung up and immediately blocked his number. Within an hour, my phone was ringing again. Brittany Chen. "Sheila, this is Brittany. I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About Marcus. About what's happening with his accounts." "You mean your husband's accounts?" "Look, I know this is complicated, but Marcus is stranded here. He can't even pay for our hotel room." "That sounds like a problem for his wife to solve."
"I can't cover everything. I'm just starting my career. I don't have that kind of money." "Then maybe you shouldn't have married someone who was already engaged to someone else." "I didn't know about you. Marcus told me you two had broken up months ago." I felt something cold and sharp in my chest. "He told you we broke up?" "He said the engagement was over. He said you'd moved out and were seeing other people." "I was planning our wedding. I was living in our house. We have joint bank accounts." Brittany was quiet for a long moment. "Oh God, he lied to me too." "Yes, he did." "But I married him. We're legally married." "Yes, you are, which makes him a bigamist under Oregon law." "What does that mean?" "It means your husband is going to be arrested when he gets back to Portland." "Can you fix this? Can you unfreeze his accounts?" "No." "But we're stuck here. We can't even fly home." "Brittany, your husband stole $47,000 from me to pay for your Vegas wedding. He lied to you about our relationship. He committed multiple felonies. The fact that you're stuck in Las Vegas is the least of your problems." "What am I supposed to do?" "That's not my problem to solve." I hung up and turned off my phone. Marcus was learning what it felt like to have no money, no options, and no one willing to help him. Tomorrow, when the criminal charges were filed, he would learn what it felt like to have no future either. But tonight, I had one more transfer to make, another $50,000 from the Caldwell Trust to my personal account, the third in 4 days. By the time Marcus figured out how to get home from Las Vegas, I would have transferred $150,000 of his family's money into accounts he couldn't touch. And that was just the beginning of what he was going to lose. Wednesday morning, I received confirmation that Detective Walsh had filed formal charges: criminal theft, financial fraud, and bigamy. The warrant would be executed as soon as Marcus returned to Oregon. But I wasn't waiting for his return to begin the social phase of my plan. The Caldwell family had spent generations building their reputation in Portland's business community. Marcus's grandfather had established the family name through timber investments. His father had expanded into commercial real estate and venture capital. The family belonged to the Multnomah Athletic Club, the Portland Art Museum Board, and the Oregon Historical Society. Their social standing was built on trust, tradition, and the appearance of moral integrity. Marcus had shattered all three, and now I was going to make sure everyone knew it. My first stop was the Morrison Industries Environmental Conference, happening that week at the Oregon Convention Center. As a project coordinator, I had professional reasons to attend, but I also knew it would be filled with Portland's business elite. People who knew the Caldwell family, who'd worked with Marcus professionally, who valued their reputations above almost everything else. I dressed carefully, professional but approachable, someone you'd trust with sensitive information. The conference's networking lunch was exactly what I'd expected. 200 professionals from environmental consulting, development, finance, and city planning. I spotted at least a dozen people I knew had business relationships with various Caldwell family members. I approached Sarah Chen, a commercial real estate attorney who'd worked on several projects with Marcus's uncle Robert. "Sarah, good to see you here." "Sheila, how's the wedding planning going? I heard you're marrying into the Caldwell family." "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about." I explained the situation carefully, factually. The theft, the bigamy, the criminal charges. I showed her the marriage license on my phone, the bank records, the evidence that couldn't be disputed or explained away. Sarah's expression shifted from disbelief to shock to professional concern. "Oh my God, Sheila, this is going to destroy them professionally." It should. Marcus violated every principle of fiduciary responsibility. But Robert Caldwell is involved in 3 major development projects right now. If this gets out, it's going to get out. The criminal charges are public record. Sarah looked around the networking lunch, clearly calculating how this information would spread through Portland's interconnected business community. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of family they are really dealing with." By the end of lunch, I'd had similar conversations with 6 other professionals. Each one had the same reaction: initial disbelief, followed by recognition that the evidence was undeniable, followed by immediate concern about their own business relationships with the Caldwell family. Portland's professional community was smaller than most people realized. Everyone knew everyone, and reputation mattered more than almost anything else. Thursday morning, I received a call from Detective Walsh. "Sheila, we've got a complication. Marcus and his wife apparently drove back from Las Vegas instead of flying. They're in Portland, but Marcus isn't at any of his usual addresses." "Thank you for this tremendous honor," he began. "The Caldwell family has been proud to serve this community for 3 generations." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it briefly, then continued speaking. But I could see his expression changing as he read whatever message had just arrived. "We've always believed that business success means nothing without moral integrity." Another buzz. Another glance. William's voice was becoming less confident. "The values my father taught me and that I've tried to pass on to my children center around honesty, responsibility, and respect for others." Someone in the audience whispered something to their table mate. The whisper spread. William could see people checking their phones, could sense the shift in attention. He cut his speech short, thanking everyone again, and returning to his seat looking confused and concerned. During dessert, Caroline found me at my table. "What have you done?" she hissed, leaning close so other people couldn't hear. I answered questions honestly. "You've humiliated our entire family." "Your brother humiliated your entire family. I just made sure people knew about it." "Dad's Lifetime Achievement Award is ruined. People are talking about Marcus instead of celebrating Dad's accomplishments." "Maybe your father should have raised a son who wouldn't overshadow his achievements with criminal behavior." Caroline's face went white. "You're destroying us." "No, Caroline, Marcus destroyed you. I'm just refusing to help you cover it up." She walked away, and I could see her talking urgently with other family members. They were realizing that their strategy of dismissing my concerns and protecting Marcus had backfired completely. Saturday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The Portland Business Journal had published an online article. "Local financial advisor faces criminal charges for theft and bigamy." The article was factual, citing court records and police reports. It mentioned Marcus's position at Morrison Financial, his family's prominence in Portland business circles, and the impact on his clients who were being transferred to other advisors. By noon, the story had been picked up by 3 other local news outlets. Social media was exploding with commentary from people who knew the family, had worked with Marcus, or were simply shocked by the scandal. The Caldwell family's social media accounts went silent. Their business associates began distancing themselves publicly. The Portland Art Museum quietly removed William Caldwell from their board of directors. The Multnomah Athletic Club received formal complaints about the family's continued membership. Sunday afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. "Sheila, this is Margaret Caldwell, Marcus's grandmother." I remembered Margaret from family gatherings. She was 91 years old, sharp as a razor, and the family matriarch who'd survived the Depression and built the family's fortune alongside her late husband. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm calling because I want to understand what my grandson did to you." This was unexpected. Everyone else in the family had focused on protecting Marcus or minimizing the damage. Margaret was asking about the actual crimes. "He stole money from our joint account and used it to marry someone else while engaged to me." "And you have proof of this?" "Yes, ma'am. Bank records, marriage licenses, police reports." "I see. And the family trust?" "Marcus violated the behavioral clauses your husband established. I invoked the protective measures." Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "My husband included those clauses because his own brother had gambling problems that nearly destroyed the family fortune. He wanted to make sure future generations couldn't make the same mistakes." "I understand. Do you understand that Marcus has betrayed not just you, but everything our family has worked for?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Then you understand why I'm not calling to ask you to stop. I'm calling to thank you. This was the last thing I had expected.
Mrs. Coldwell? Sheila, I spent 70 years building this family's reputation. I watched my husband work himself into an early grave to establish our name in this community. Marcus has spit on all of that. What are you saying? I'm saying that if Marcus had succeeded in hiding what he did, if he'd gotten away with betraying you and stealing from the family trust, he would have done worse things later. Better that he face consequences now than destroy everything completely. I appreciate you telling me that. The family won't forgive you for exposing this, but they shouldn't forgive Marcus for doing it in the first place. After Margaret hung up, I sat in my quiet house thinking about her words. For a week, I'd been painted as vindictive, bitter, someone who was overreacting to personal drama. But Margaret Caldwell, the 91-year-old matriarch who'd spent her life protecting the family name, understood exactly what I was doing and why it mattered. Marcus hadn't just betrayed me. He'd betrayed every value his family claimed to represent. And now, thanks to my careful documentation and strategic disclosure, everyone in Portland's business community knows it. The social destruction was complete. The Caldwell family name was permanently associated with scandal. Marcus's professional reputation was ruined. But I still wasn't finished. Because next week, Marcus would be arrested, and the legal consequences would begin in earnest. Monday morning at 7:43 a.m., Detective Walsh called with the news I'd been waiting for. We found Marcus. He's been staying at a budget motel on McLaughlin Boulevard under Brittany's name. Patrol units are moving in now. How will the arrest happen? Public. He's in the parking lot, loading luggage into a car. Looks like he was planning to leave town again. I didn't drive to watch the arrest. I had something more important to do. At 9:15 a.m., I walked into Pacific Northwest Financial Services carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the confidence of someone who'd inherited $2.8 million. James Henderson met me in his office with a champagne flute and a stack of legal documents. Miss Morrison, congratulations. The trust restructuring is complete. You are now the primary beneficiary of the Caldwell Trust. All of it? All of it. Marcus's criminal charges triggered the moral turpitude clauses his grandfather included. The family board voted unanimously to transfer full beneficiary status to you. Henderson spread the documents across his desk. Your new account balance is $2,847,293.16. You also inherit an investment portfolio, which includes commercial real estate, timber rights, and venture capital positions. I signed the papers feeling something I hadn't experienced since this began. Not revenge, not satisfied. Power. There's one more thing, Henderson said. The trust includes a provision for family members facing financial hardship. Technically, you could authorize support payments to Marcus's parents or sister. I could also choose not to. Yes, you could. I left the financial office as one of Portland's youngest millionaires, but the money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was about to unfold at the Multnomah County Courthouse. At 2 p.m., I attended Marcus's arraignment. The courtroom was packed with local media, legal observers, and Caldwell family members who looked like they were attending a funeral. Marcus appeared in orange jail clothing, looking haggard and defeated. When he saw me sitting in the front row, his expression shifted from despair to something approaching panic. His attorney, David Webb, entered a plea of not guilty to all charges. Your Honor, Webb said, my client is a respected member of the community with strong family ties and no previous criminal record. We request release on his own recognizance. ADA Martinez stood up. Your Honor, the defendant has demonstrated willingness to flee jurisdiction twice. More concerning, we've discovered additional financial crimes involving his professional clients. We request bail be set at $750,000. Judge Patricia Hoffman reviewed the case file. Mr. Caldwell, you're charged with systematic theft from your domestic partner, fraudulent use of shared financial accounts, bigamy, and now professional misconduct involving client funds.
These crimes demonstrate deliberate deception over an extended period of time. Webb looked desperate. Your Honor, my client's family is willing to provide financial support for bail. Actually, Your Honor, I said, standing up, I need to address the court about the defendant's financial resources. Judge Hoffman looked surprised. Miss Morrison, you're not represented by counsel in this proceeding. I understand, Your Honor, but I have information relevant to bail consideration. ADA Martinez nodded to the judge, who gestured for me to continue. Your Honor, as of this morning, I am the primary beneficiary of the Caldwell Trust. Marcus Caldwell no longer has access to family financial resources. His family cannot provide bail support because they no longer control the assets they would have used.
The courtroom went silent. I could see Carolyn Caldwell's face go white. William Caldwell was staring at me with undisguised shock. Judge Hoffman consulted with the court clerk, then addressed Webb. Mr. Webb, can your client post bail without family assistance? Webb whispered frantically with Marcus, who was shaking his head. No, Your Honor. Without family support, my client cannot meet any substantial bail requirement. Bail is set at $500,000. Mr. Caldwell will remain in custody. As the marshals led Marcus away, he turned to look at me one last time. I smiled and gave him a small wave. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Ms. Morrison, can you comment on becoming the Caldwell Trust beneficiary? The trust includes provisions to protect family assets from beneficiaries who demonstrate moral turpitude. Marcus's criminal behavior triggered those protections. What will you do with the inheritance? I'll use it responsibly, which is more than I can say for the previous beneficiary. Do you have any message for Marcus Caldwell? I looked directly into the camera. Actions have consequences. Some consequences are permanent. That evening, I received a call from Brittany Chen. Sheila, please, I need to talk to you. About what? About Marcus. About what happens to me now. You're married to a man who's going to prison. That's what happens to you. But I didn't know about any of this. I thought he was single. I thought he was wealthy. He told you he was wealthy? He said his family had money. He said we'd never have to worry about anything. I almost laughed. Brittany, your husband is in jail, facing multiple felony charges, and he just lost access to a $3 million trust fund. You married someone with no money, no job, and no future. Can you help me? Can you do something? I could, but I won't. Why? I didn't do anything to you. You married my fiancé. That's what you did to me. But he lied to me too. Yes, he did. And now you get to live with the consequences of trusting him. I hung up and blocked her number. Wednesday afternoon, Carolyn called. Sheila, we need to talk. About what? About the family. About what happens now. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Carolyn looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. You have our family's entire inheritance, she said without preamble. I have the inheritance Marcus lost through his criminal behavior. But what about the rest of us? What about Mom and Dad? What about my kids? What about them? They're innocent in this. They didn't do anything wrong. I studied Carolyn's face. 2 weeks ago, she had told me I was imagining problems that didn't exist. She had suggested I was having stress-related delusions. Carolyn, when I came to you with evidence of Marcus's crimes, what did you do? I tried to find alternative explanations. You protected Marcus instead of supporting me. I was trying to keep the family together by assuming I was lying. Carolyn looked down at her coffee. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. And now you're living with the consequences. But Sheila, surely you don't want to destroy the whole family over what Marcus did. I'm not destroying anything.
I'm simply not fixing what Marcus destroyed. What would it take? What would it take for you to restore some of the family support? I leaned forward. Carolyn, do you remember what you told me at your house? You said Marcus would never do what I was describing because you knew your brother.
I was wrong. You weren't wrong about knowing Marcus. You were wrong about what kind of person that made him. Caroline's eyes filled with tears. Please, my parents are 68 years old. They were counting on trust support for retirement. They should have thought about that before they raised a son who would commit multiple felonies. What about my boys? What about their college funds? Your boys can apply for financial aid like everyone else. I stood to leave, but Caroline grabbed my arm. Sheila, I'm begging you, don't let Marcus's crimes destroy the rest of us. Marcus's crimes already destroyed the rest of you. I'm just not preventing the natural consequences. That evening, I sat in my house now since Marcus would never be coming back, and reviewed everything that had happened in 3 weeks. Marcus was in jail, awaiting trial on multiple felony charges that would likely result in 5 to 7 years in prison. His professional career was permanently destroyed. His marriage to Brittany had cost him everything while giving him nothing. The Caldwell family had lost their generational wealth, their social standing, and their business relationships. William Caldwell's Lifetime Achievement Award was overshadowed by his son's criminal scandal. Patricia Caldwell's Bridge Club friends whispered about her family's disgrace. Caroline's children would grow up knowing their uncle was a convicted felon who destroyed the family fortune. Brittany Chen discovered she'd married a penniless criminal instead of a wealthy businessman. She would likely file for divorce and return to her entry-level job, permanently associated with one of Portland's most notorious financial scandals. And I had gained more than I'd lost. The money was significant, but more important was the validation. Everyone who'd dismissed my concerns, who'd suggested I was overreacting, who'd protected Marcus instead of believing me, now had to live with the knowledge that they'd been completely wrong. My phone rang. Unknown number. Sheila, this is Marcus. I should have hung up immediately. Instead, I waited. I'm calling from jail. They gave me one phone call and I wanted to talk to you. Talk? I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. But taking the trust, that's too far. Is it? My whole family is suffering because of what I did. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair that your whole family is suffering because of what you did. Can we work something out? Can we find some kind of compromise? Marcus, 3 weeks ago, you stole our joint savings and married someone else while engaged to me. You lied to me, you lied to your family, and you lied to Brittany. You committed multiple felonies and destroyed everything you claimed to value. I know, I made mistakes. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices, and choices have consequences. But the trust was my inheritance. It was supposed to be my future. And I was supposed to be your wife. We don't always get what we're supposed to get. Marcus, please. I'll do anything. I'll make it right. You can't make it right, Marcus. You can't give me back my ability to trust people. You can't give me back the future I planned. You can't undo the fact that you're a criminal. So this is permanent? You're really going to keep everything? I'm going to keep everything your grandfather left to protect the family from people exactly like you. I loved you, Sheila. I really did love you. No, Marcus. You loved what I could do for you. You loved having someone to steal from and lie to. But you never loved me. That's not true. Goodbye, Marcus. I hung up and turned off my phone. 6 months later, I attended Marcus's sentencing hearing. He'd been convicted on all charges and faced 7 years in prison. Brittany had filed for divorce and moved back to California. The Caldwell family had sold their Lake Oswego house and moved to a modest apartment in Beaverton. As Marcus was led away in handcuffs for the final time, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfied, not victory, peace. I had started this journey as someone who'd been betrayed, stolen from, and dismissed by everyone who was supposed to care about me. I was ending it as someone who'd proven that actions have consequences, that trust broken has a price, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the truth speak for itself. Marcus had gambled everything on the assumption that I would be too weak, too heartbroken, or too intimidated to fight back. He'd lost everything because he'd been wrong about who I really was. And I'd gained everything because I'd been right about who he really was. The difference between revenge and justice, I'd learned, isn't in the actions you take. It's in whether those actions restore balance to a world where someone thought they could hurt you without consequences. Marcus thought he could steal from me, lie to me, and betray me without losing anything that mattered. He was wrong, and now he knew exactly how wrong he'd been.